Hi, welcome to the Tinnitus Relief Zoom forum. I'm just gonna start. I'm just gonna move the window out of the way so it doesn't distract me, so I can look at the camera instead of looking at the screen. Okay, so welcome. Here we are, and the title today is Understand, Relax and Reduce Tinnitus. I don't know why I came up with that title, and hopefully that will be revealed to me during the conversation. So this is a conversation. This is about this is about changing the focus from the noise in your ears, the ringing in your ears, the tinnitus, to the bigger picture and what's going on in life and what can go on for you, what indeed is going on for you. And would you believe it? There's a fly. I don't know where it's come from. I never have flies in my flat at all. But as soon as I start a conference, the dogs will bark or a fly will just jump in. Now, is that because I'm not aware of it? Is that because I'm more tuned into the camera? Is that because flies like video conferences? I don't know. That and many other interesting questions are going to be answered tonight on this forum. I've just come from work. I work as well as a practitioner, helping people with tinnitus and making videos and audios and things. I also work as a local government officer, and I work in IT and I do AV and video and stuff. And I've just come from. We had to set up this meeting in our chambers. Chambers is like where the council make decisions. It's quite a posh building, and it has chairs and tables and stuff made out of oak, and they're really big. And when you walk in, you have to say a prayer and stuff to start the meeting, and you ask for God's blessing, and then you make decisions based on your wisdom. And it was really interesting because that was what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. I was making decisions based on your wisdom. And I realized that there was a lot of the things that I do in my day that are speaking to me on a different level. Like if I listen with nothing on my mind, if I just allow life to happen, if I go in without preconceptions and thinking that I know it all, then what tends to happen is that life is incredibly surprising and reveals to me a hidden depth, should we say. So let's say today, what have I learned today that can help you? Yeah, this is really cool, actually. The other day, I went to work and they were doing a charity thing. And they had lots of charity posters all over the wall. And I complained and said, look, you know what? I don't mind contributing to charity. Sorry, I'll put that pen down. It's annoying. I don't mind contributing to charity, but there's too many posters. It's by the lift, it's by the stairs. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, people moaned about it and they said, oh, what are you talking about? You're complaining about charity, blah, 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 like that. And they didn't really understand what I was talking about. Today, there was a different charity. It was cancer research or something like that. And everyone was dressed in pink. All the women were dressed in pink, and they were giving out these pink ribbons. And some of the guys were given these like luau things, you know, like the Hawaiian wreaths in pink as well. And in actual fact, I've got a badge here somewhere. Oh no, it's in my pocket. Anyway, I might show you another time. But that's pink. So we made our effort, and it was really interesting because my attitude was completely different today. I really wanted to contribute. I just felt like they were asking me for £1, and I sort of said, do you not want any more than that? You know, is it you really after just £1? Is that, because I'd like to give more. And they're like, oh yeah, okay. So I gave £1 on one side of the building, and then I went to the other side of the building and I gave £1 there. And then I bought some cakes. And it's funny because I'm not really on a diet, but I am watching what I eat at the moment. And so I was caught in two worlds. I was like, oh, okay, I've got a cake and it's really nice and I'd really like to taste it, but and it's for charity, yeah. So it's £1 a slice. £1 a slice is pretty expensive for a cake. It's homemade cake. I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's all right. Actually, thinking about it, the other day I had a cake. It was £2.75. Well, I didn't. I bought it for my sister and I shared it with my sister. So maybe £1 isn't that much. Anyway, I spent £3 and I bought 3 massive bits of cake, huge. I mean, like they were like this. And I had a little bit of the cake, and then I thought, do you know what? I want to share this with everyone. So then I chopped it up into small pieces, and I took it back to my team, and I put it in front of my team, and I just left it there. I didn't even say, hey, here's some cake, eat it. I walked past about an hour later, and there was no cake left, so it went down really well. It occurred to me later in the day that behind the scenes of everyday life, there is a lot that we don't see. There's a depth to life that can only be appreciated through the mechanism of how our mind works. And that for me is what I call understanding. So what I mean by that is when I'm caught up in my thinking and I'm worried about something, and I'm looking at the world through a filter of, you could call it negativity or perception or whatever, or even like, my tinnitus or my back or whatever it is, whatever the condition or the person, whatever the thing. When I'm looking through that filter, I'm missing a lot of depth to life. And one of the insights that I had very, very early on about how I was going to cope, and that's a really good word, cope, with my tinnitus, was there's a lot more going on underneath. There's so much depth to life. I'm looking at it in one way, and that is a painful way, but there is so much more going on in life. It's very, very deep. It's very rich and juicy. And so what that set me off on this course of learning to understand the world, understand how my mind worked, understand how thinking worked and how thought worked. And then that led me to a deeper appreciation of where that thought came from, where I came from, why I thought different thoughts, why sometimes I was happy, why sometimes I was sad, why sometimes I could sleep, why sometimes I couldn't sleep. And what that gave me was like the deeper understanding about who I really was and who I really am. I'm not was, because I still am, but who I really am. It really gave me like a grounding, not all the time, not 100%, but just enough to help me go to sleep, enough to rest, enough to hear the quiet, still voice inside me that was giving me guidance and insights along the way. So I've got this in completely the wrong order. I really wanted to speak about how you listen to this, but I think just the way that it's come out is that it's very, you see, what I'm doing is I'm talking from the soul, and the soul is about in a different level of communication. So it's the feeling, it's feeling and not the words. And so if you're sitting there comparing what you're hearing to something else, then you're missing it. So, what you learn, what you've learned already to get to this point, what you understand, what you think is truth, what you think is reality, is not going to help you to leap to the next level of wisdom and insight, because you already know it. You're in a boundary, right? You have a boundary of thinking, and if you compare what you're hearing tonight to what you know, what you think you know, then you're not going to learn anything. And when I talk about learning, I mean learning as in hearing something at a very deep level, and then getting an insight. An insight is like a sight from within. That is like a fresh thought that comes up from within you, and it feels really good and really normal in a way, like common sense. So, for example, tonight I was doing a sound thing, and the guy, I had to check this video, make sure the sound was coming out at the right level. And I said to the guy, "Look, is this the right level? Do you think it's too loud?" And he said, "No, I think it's okay." But I could hear the distortion in it, and having had tinnitus, I was very aware that if there's distortion in the PA, then that can damage people's ears. So my wisdom just said to me, just turn it down slightly, just a notch, So I went to the mixing deck and I turned it down. There was no anxiety about that. It was just, it came up. It felt like the right thing to do, and I did it. And that's often that's often the giveaway, is if it feels like the right thing to do and you just end up doing it, and then you sort of look back on it and go, "Oh, that was a great idea. That's a really good idea, and it's been implemented already." That's happened for me so much, and that's because of this understanding. So if you might have seen some of my videos already. I'm going to assume that you haven't. I'm just going to quickly explain what I think is going on. That I think, I'm just going to use a quote from the master, who I've learned so much of. There's a guy called Sydney Banks, and he had a revelation. He was an enlightened man. I heard this the other day. He was an enlightened man. People knew he was an enlightened man. And he had a message to give to people. And the message was that it isn't about that, it's not about the content of your thinking. It is the fact that you're thinking. It's the process of thinking. It's the life force presenting a thought, coming up, disappearing, and the neutrality of it. So thinking is going on all the time. It's really interesting because before I started this video conference, there is actually nobody on this video conference at all at the moment. But what I believe is that one day somebody will see it and it will benefit them. That's not to say that 2 minutes before I started the video conference, I thought, why bother? Go to the pub or go back to sleep, or, so I had these thoughts coming in, and I just didn't take them seriously. And the reason is because I knew that another thought was going to come along, and that was going to be a fresh thought. And I was open to that. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's not going to help me much. I mean, what could help me? Well, anything really, any sort of fresh thought. And I remember what was the triggering point for me was, the triggering point for me was what might help people. This might help people. Somebody might hear it, and it might help people. And that was enough for me to get over any fears and to start to do it. Okay. So, I don't mind what you do when you listen to this. I mean, don't sit there looking at the screen, concentrating on my every word. You can get up, you can clean a desk. Sometimes I do that. Look, I've got this stuff. It's like, oh, clean that up, and it's just like, because it's so casual. It's so casual. It's like you're listening to music. It's, you don't sort of really concentrate on music. It's just in the background and it's floating around. And something will drop in for you. Something to drop in for you. And the reason for that is because what I'm sharing with you is a truth that you already know. I'm sharing with you a truth that you already know. So, who you really are is not like you're thinking. You're much, much more than that. You are connected to life force. You're connected to life. Okay, we're all connected to life. We come into this world. We're conceived by our parents. We're gestated. We start off with a relationship with our body in the womb, and then it just grows and grows and grows and grows, and then we come out, and when we have this other relationship with our body, which is we get to play around and have an adventure, and sometimes we fall over and scrape our knees and what have you, and we get a few scars and what have you, but we still have this relationship, right, with our body, and we have this relationship with our mind. And there's a commonality to the human race. There's a commonality that, you know, we have these experiences that seem to repeat and repeat and repeat, you know, like, so people can be really, really depressed and then suddenly, bam, just snap out of it in one thought and suddenly have a revelation. People, I was thinking about this the other day with cancer, because somebody contacted me and they're in remission at the moment, and they just said, you know, can we go out for a drink? And in my mind, as I was like, oh my God, you know, what could I talk about? I've never had cancer. I've never had like a really bad disease or anything. I wouldn't know, you know, what to do. And then it just occurred to me that, you know, that this, a lot of people, when they have a major illness or when they have a health challenge, what they actually have a better quality of life afterwards. And that is because something wakes up within them. And it's just really like so simple, like that you're asleep. And I was asleep. I was so asleep. I mean, I was just like partying. I was getting into relationship problems. I was in trouble at work. My body was falling apart. I wasn't taking care of it. I was asleep. I was in this trance of destruction, man. And then I woke up because my body said, look, if I don't give you a signal, then you're just going to carry on. You know, I mean, the night that I hurt my ears, I was in a stadium. I was listening to rock. I was listening to Metallica. It's a bit more than rock. It's called thrash metal. And oh my God, I mean, I think I had half a bottle of whiskey on the way up on the train, and I had whiskey shooters and then about 4 beers in the O2 arena. And, you know, that's the level of destruction that I was on. That's binge drinking on a big scale. And then I remember just before I went in, I was really angry, and I remember standing in the middle of the O2, and I'm so drunk, and I'm shouting like a madman in the middle of the O2, and it's, you know, if my body hadn't created something to wake me up, then I would have ended up in casualty with a dead liver or or being punched or run over or something. You know, there's a wisdom in the body. There's a wisdom in life. You know, when you cut yourself, it heals naturally. And it's funny because when we get a big thing, and when I got the big thing, like the tinnitus, I looked at it and I went, well, that ain't going to heal because everybody around me is telling me it's not going to heal. So then I fix onto those thoughts, and I don't let any fresh thoughts come in. And, you know, fresh thoughts, I had a fresh thought the other day, which I really want to be healthy. I'd love to be healthy. I want to be, you know, I've heard this thing about you always want what you, no, what is it? You always want what you want, whether you can have it or not. And I've heard that a couple of times, but it really sunk in the other day, because I was like, yeah, if you have been lying to yourself about what you really want and where you're really at and where you really want to go and who you really are, then there's an effect. You know, I love this. I heard this with Keith Blevins the other day. It's amazing about how they connect you up to a lie detector test, right? And when you lie, your stress gets triggered, like your physiological response gets triggered. You go, your stress, and the needle goes whoop, 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 yeah. And that is like, imagine doing that daily, weekly, monthly, for years and years and years and years, just lying to yourself, everything is great. Lying to yourself, I'm in control. Lying to yourself, I know it all. Lying to yourself, I'm healthy. Lying to yourself, I don't care. Whatever. You know, I'm not saying that. What I am saying, I'm just pointing out what I've noticed about life. That I was lying to myself a lot. Lying to myself about where I was. Lying to myself about what I wanted and what I loved. And then I get into this thing with this tinnitus where for some reason I just accept it as a truth that I'm not going to be free of tinnitus. whether it's from the doctor, whether it's from media, because we do a lot of research, right? We look on websites and they say, oh, it's incurable, and that goes in, and then we focus on it, and then we get depressed, and and it just suddenly occurred to me that okay, whatever thoughts I have, right, they are not the be all and end all. Like, if I have a thought that is what I might call not helpful, right? So say like, okay, I've got tinnitus and it's awful and I can't sleep and I'm so depressed, right? Now, because I understand that there's always thinking going on, that we're thinking creatures and new, fresh thought can come in at any time. What it does is it frees me up from feeling trapped. So I know that a fresh thought and an insight is going to come up. Now, before I learned this understanding, I didn't know that. I thought my thinking is telling me what's real, and so I need to fix it. I need to go out and find a solution and fix it, okay? Whereas what I learned when I learned who I really am, that I'm light, that I'm love, that I'm connection, that I'm even more than that I'm beyond those words. I'm the sun, I'm the moon, I'm the rain, I'm the breeze. I'm walking on the beach. I'm a jungle. I'm a jungle. I'm intrinsically part of life. And if I break down life into small, like I was on the beach the other day in Spain, and I had this beautiful thought that we're all connected, right? But then but how could I prove that? I said, well, okay, so there's people over here and there's people over here, and these people are lying in the sun and they're basking like lizards, right? And as I walked onto the beach, I felt like I was coming into a family of lizards, because I was going to bask on the beach as well. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I looked over at the other side and there were people standing up, and it suddenly occurred to me, I looked at it and I saw it really, really clearly, that we're connected through the pebbles and the stones. We're connected through the sea. We're connected through the sand. And when you get even more granular to the stuff that we can't see, then we're connected by molecules and we're connected by atoms. Okay, and there is no real distinction between this person on the beach and this person on the beach. They're all connected. And then when you factor in the fact that we're spirit and we're energy, and that we're just so much more than the eye sees. What I teach my clients is to see with fresh eyes and to hear with fresh ears. And actually, I think I might have heard that in church as well. It might be in the Bible. I think Jesus said it. I'm not a particularly religious person, although I have dipped in and had a little bit of religious experience. But I'm sure there's something like, maybe it's the scales dropping from the eyes and seeing the world afresh, seeing the world anew. There's something really refreshing about that. We were talking about when people have a major health incident and then afterwards their quality of life improves. Well, that's really what happens. The eyes are opened to what's really going on. So let me explain to you what I think is really going on. I think that we have a thought and we have a consciousness, and we shine our consciousness onto that thought, and that thought is like a dead, it's like really grey and dead, and it's got nothing going on with it. But when we shine it on, it's like one of those solar lamps, and the solar lamp hits it, and suddenly it just grows and it expands and it takes on this life. We give it life. We focus on the thinking that we have, on the thoughts, and we give them life. And then when it is sort of separate from us at that point, in that it then takes on a form of its own. It's now a form. It's now a thing that we've given life, and we accept that there it is, and I've got to deal with that. And then what happens is that our consciousness makes it so real. And we have all these thoughts, and we create this scenario. We create this drama, really, that we're in. And that just seems so real to us. And it seems like we're like in this movie, and but we forget that we're in a movie. We totally forget we're in a movie. We forget that it's not real and that there's another reality. I mean, I talk about this quite a lot, but I believe that there's a reality, and when you're stuck in the movie and you're looking at, you know, for example, okay, I'm dealing with tinnitus and it's really horrible and I can't sleep and stuff. That's the movie that you're in, right? But there's another movie which is, well, you know, something that just brings to mind, what could I do that I would enjoy while I'm not sleeping? Instead of like, it just shifts slightly. Or it's like, could I sleep at another time? Could I, under a tree in the outside where there's a different environment? There's, you know, what I'm trying to say to you is that there is another reality, and that your wisdom will present the answer to you if you just allow it to. And you're going to ask me, how do you allow your wisdom to present your answer to you? You just be open to it. You just realize that, okay, you used to think that your circumstances made you think a certain way, but it isn't like that. Your thoughts are coming up. They're being generated from this life force, from this consciousness, from this universe. You are then creating your experience on a moment-to-moment basis. And as you create that experience on a moment-to-moment basis, you're enjoying it. You're getting into it. You know, you're making it real. You're making it real. But that doesn't mean that in the next moment you can't have another thought which is going to free you, that's going to have an insight, that's going to have a freshness that just seems like common sense, yeah? And once that starts to happen again, once you start to be open to that, then it's like, I think of it as breadcrumbs. It's a trail of breadcrumbs, and you follow the trail of breadcrumbs, and you don't know where it's going to go in. There's an unknown thing, you know. I mean, isn't it better to think that the unknown has some nice twists and turns and enjoyable things that are going to happen, rather than the unknown is just like this dim, grim existence of being someone suffering from tinnitus? You know, of course, that is such a more comforting scenario, a comforting movie. And you know what? If you're focusing on fixing tinnitus, then you're really giving a lot of energy to the thoughts around tinnitus. So what I encourage you to do is to just be open to the fact that you might have a thought, you might have an insight, something fresh that occurs to you in the moment, and it would be nothing to do with managing that sickness or that condition. You know, we're talking about a hobby. We're talking about, in my case, photography was just so cool for me. I didn't really do a huge amount of photography before I had tinnitus, but it was the one thing where I just really got absorbed, and I really just forgot about what was going on, and it really, really helped me. And now, I didn't do it as a technique. I didn't think, oh, I need to do photography to help with my tinnitus. It was just like, I focused on something else. You know, I just decided to, as I learned about this understanding, you know, that we have this mind, and we're part of what I call mind, or the universe, or life energy. And then we have a consciousness which brings our thoughts to life, and that we're thinking, and then it isn't about the content of the thoughts, but it's just the fact that we're always thinking. And if we're aware that we're always thinking, there's always fresh thought coming in, that gives us hope that a new thought can come in. You know, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. It's so freeing. It's so freeing. And I don't know, maybe you've caught on to a little bit of the feeling, but or maybe you haven't. But I would really encourage you to just be open to the fact that that's the way it works. You have innate health, you have innate well-being, and when you relax, you know, and you don't have to relax. You don't have to relax and have peace. You can still relax and have tinnitus. You know, if you listen really, really carefully, really deeply to what's going on inside your body, there is a peace, there is a sacredness, there is a space, there's a nothingness, there's a depth. Even though that noise is going on, you know, once I become aware of that, then stillness takes on a different aspect to me. It's not like I'm looking for a solution. It's not like I want the tinnitus to go. I do want the tinnitus to go, but there isn't a desperation to it. It's just like my well-being does not depend on whether there are distracting noises for me. That is such a massive shift for me, because previously it did. And I'm sure you're probably in a similar situation where you think that unless that tinnitus goes or goes lower, your well-being is just shot. And when I talk about your well-being, I mean your happiness, I mean your spirit, I mean your liveliness, I mean your fun, your love, your connection. It's all affected, right? And relationships. But it really isn't the case. Once you realize that they're separate things, and so you can have an experience of life and everything going on, but your well-being isn't intact. It's over here. It's like still with you. It's deep inside your heart and your soul. And once you hear that, and you can hear that every day. I hear that every day. I hear that by meeting people. I hear that by seeing good movies. I hear that by spending time looking at nature, through photography, whatever. But you can hear what the universe is telling you despite that noise. If nobody has ever said that to you, then that is probably going to help you a lot. Because that takes away the tension, it takes away the need to be free of this. It just feels comforting to know. And the unknown takes on a different aspect. The unknown isn't full of doctors and searching for cures and disappointment. The unknown is now, what would you love? What do you want that you want even if you can't have it? What have you been denying yourself? That, to me, seems like a good place to stop. And I'm a big believer in when there's an energy, when there's a feeling, that there is more information in the gaps between the words. That's where your soul is beginning to hear. Not even beginning to hear, it's always hearing, but that's where you're hearing your soul hearing at a very, very deep level. That's where the conversations become soul conversations, transformative conversations. And it's the space between the thoughts. When your thinking slows down, that's what I'm talking about, when the thinking slows down. When you feel that feeling, your thinking slows down. It's a minute, tiny nanosecond of space, but it's enough space, because even though it's a nanosecond of space compared to what we think in time and space, it's actually massive. It's actually huge. It's like a universe within a tiny nanosecond. And in that universe are all the answers that you require, all the wisdom, all the love, all the nurturing, the next step, the realization about who you truly are is in that space. So we haven't got any questions because nobody's on here, but I'm sure you might have some questions in the future. So you can email me at treved@gmail.com. Yeah. So there we go. The next one is probably going to be in about 2 weeks' time. And all I want you to do is just switch off your phone, switch off the computer, have a nice nurturing glass of water, and just give yourself some time, give yourself some space, and you'll notice there's something much, much deeper going on than that sound. Much, much deeper. And if you have a good feeling and you feel like you're being filled up and you're getting loads of answers, just sit with that. You don't need to question it, because it's happening all the time. It's part of who you really are. That's who you really are. That's who you really are. That's that wisdom, that love. I've heard it put as peace and understanding. Love and understanding. So enjoy your evening or afternoon or whenever you're watching this, but give yourself that space, all right? Bless you all, and I'll speak to you again soon.